Hi guys.
Hi,
Hi,
guys.
Taruna.
Hi Riaan.
Hi.
Hi Divya. Hi Taruna.
Hi.
Okay, so should we do a quick round of introductions? I know all of you all are very familiar with each other. We'll start with Divya. Divya is the editor of Columnist Traveler India, and they've done a whole digital magazine recently, and a very beautiful tribute to the tourism industry.
Thank you.
Karan is founder of Karan Gupta Education Foundation. He's an educationist, activist, and columnist. Welcome, Karan. And he's going to be talking about how the whole travel ban has affected students.
Thank you.
We're going to Riaan. Riaan is a Mumbai, Colombo-based luxury blogger, content creator, magazine editor, and freelance journalist. And Taruna is the founder and Navigator-In-Chief of Ecompass Experience that conceptualizes immersive experiences. She is Delhi-based. So we're going to be talking for people who've just logged on. May I please ask you to mute as well as take off your videos? Perfect. Okay, should we start? Do I have all of you?
Yeah.
Yes.
I think people, yeah.
Perfect. Divya, should we start with you? So COVID obviously made the entire travel industry hit a pause button. How do we reset? How do we hit play?
I'm so sorry, but I
Hi, can you hear me now, Taruna?
Hello.
I
Divya,
can hear you.
sorry. Did everyone lose Aneesha, or was it just me?
Yes.
No, I heard her. I heard her.
I heard her too.
I'm so sorry.
We lost you again.
What I'll do is maybe I
Sorry, Divya, we lost you there for a minute.
Okay, so I think she's trying to reconnect Aneesha. You.
Yeah, so okay, let's just move this question now to Taruna then. Taruna, we've seen airlines have had a massive hit during this whole period, especially. And seating capacities have been hit by almost 70%. How hard is it going to be?
You guys froze. Hello.
Hello? Taruna, can you hear me?
Yes. I lost you in the middle, but you're talking about airlines, is it?
I'm talking about airlines with 70% slash already in terms of business, with social distancing to be factored in even on flights. How is it going to affect business, how we travel, how we take a flight the next time?
Right. So, I mean, this is going to be the new normal. And I think the sooner we kind of wake up to the reality, it's going to just help all of us deal with the current scenario. Well, as far as the airlines are concerned, like you mentioned, a lot of airlines are considering taking the middle seat off. Others are even contemplating putting one person per row to maintain social distancing. So what's that going to lead to is like, how do airlines continue flying and how do they remain commercially viable? So having said that, I think one thing that the governments could look at could be, waiving of landing fees, for instance, and parking fees of airlines. That's one thing that could be a silver lining. Another thing that could help in the situation could be like the falling prices of oil. That could be another silver lining, and that could offset the prices, because the airlines will invariably be forced to increase the price points going forward. There's no way out of it. But we're hoping that all these other factors, if we work collaboratively and come up with solutions together with the governments and other others in the travel industry, we can come up with solutions.
But in terms of one person occupying an entire row, means automatically people will fly less. Or there will be more planes. We can't have more planes.
No.
We've seen the damage they've done and how our skies are clearer. So what is the...
So there were in fact, there were a lot of planes that were ordered and that were in the pipeline. Lufthansa, Emirates, everybody had ordered like massive number of Boeings because they were all expecting tourism and more people flying around the world, and nobody expected a sudden crisis to emerge out of nowhere. So for the time being, all those plans have been put to hold. So what's essentially happening is that about, say, 70% of the planes are parked, and maybe 30% of the planes are flying right now. And what they're trying to do is they're trying to fly them to the capacity that would be allowed by regulators, which is obviously maybe one person per row. So, because also keep in mind, we're still far away from the point where everything's going to go back to normal. When the barriers are lifted, people will start traveling, maybe the essential travelers, the business travelers, and slowly we'll see the leisure traveler coming back on board.
Okay. Divya, do we have you back? I can't seem to see her. Can anyone see her? No, I think Divya's not back as yet.
She'll come back.
Yeah. So in the meantime, let me ask all of you all this question. Now, the COVID has obviously put a big pause button on travel, whether it's for leisure, whether it's for business, whether it's students traveling. How do we hit the play button again?
I think, if I might start, I think there is definitely going to be a huge sense of paranoia over the next couple of months. And, you know, as much as hotels and airlines and everything take precautionary measures and advertise their precautionary measures and hygiene measures, like for us to be completely convinced of a safe environment is going to take a long time. So, you know, like even if, for example, an airline that says that we're doing just one passenger in a row, at the end of the day, we still have to walk through the cabin with like dozens of other people and cabin crew, and still use the loo, and still have still go through the same airport facilities and everything. And the same applies for hotels as well. So I think the biggest challenge for us right now is going to be to get over that paranoia and to at least slowly start kind of inching towards normalcy.
Fair enough. What about you, Karan?
Aneesha, thanks for having me on this panel. This pandemic has spared no one, and students are no exception. The Ministry of External Affairs has stated that there are 7.5 lakh Indian students studying abroad, and this is a huge number, making the issue of student travel very relevant. For students who were planning to study abroad this year, things are looking complicated because, for one, most universities haven't even decided if they're starting online or on campus. And Indian kids have to evaluate the pros and cons of starting online and then moving to campus in January. So while the pros are clear, you save time, but the cons are that Jan is not the best time to travel. It's cold, it's mid-year, adjustment is harder. And these travel restrictions have created chaos for the kids. Even if some universities do actually start in September or October, we don't know if students would get visas on time. Consulates and embassies have been closed, and when they eventually open, there would be a huge backlog of visa applications. Embassies in Canada and Australia in normal circumstances take 3 to 4 months to process a student visa. God alone knows how long they would take given this backlog. And speaking of visas, currently there are no student visas for online courses, but we don't know that if you're going to be a full-time student in the US or Canada for even a semester, would that warrant a student visa? These rules are still not clear. So it has impacted students. The travel restrictions and the virus, of course, have impacted students a lot. And there is a lot of confusion right now whether to go or not.
But even if you go, like you're saying, the visa restrictions are not clear. They may ask for more documentation. There may be a health certification needed as well for certain countries. Taruna, would you like to weigh in on this, the new requirements that may be needed now?
As far as a lot of, it's still kind of coming in from various universities and various countries, because as of now, all universities have gone online. Going forward, of course, the visas, as Karan mentioned, I mean, a lot of everything is delayed. A lot of kids are actually thinking of deferring. Correct me if I'm wrong, Karan. A lot of kids have, a lot of children, a lot of students who are joining university this fall have actually deferred to the next year, because let's not forget, it's not fine. Getting an education is very important. That's why they're going there. But it's also the experience of being a student, right? I mean, no amount of online education can really, really give you that experience of being on campus, interacting and making new friends. So I don't think students want to miss out on that opportunity. So a lot of them are deferring. I'm not sure of the numbers, but I believe a lot of them defer to the following year.
That's welcome back, Divya.
Thanks. Sorry about that.
No worries. We were just talking about how we can possibly hit the play button on the industry again. What do you think is the strategy going forward now?
Well, I think Riaan touched upon it a little bit. People are going to need to feel really secure, and they're going to need to feel really safe. So I think that the best thing that the industry can do is really communicate all of the measures that they're taking. So if you see already the Hyatt, for example, the Marriott, the Hilton Group, a lot of the airlines, especially Etihad and Emirates, are really talking about all of the measures that they're putting into place right now, especially in regards to safety, sanitization, cleanliness. There's going to be actual hygiene managers now at the Hyatt hotels. It's a new position that they're creating. We're likely to see a lot of this as that becomes a priority. Everyone has been talking about how sanitization is the new security. We saw a huge increase in people allocating resources and money into security after 9/11 and after other terror attacks. So I think we're going to see the same sort of thing apply here. And I think the most important thing that the industry can do is try and reassure people that they're doing everything possible. Of course, I think for all of us, all of us travel quite a bit, and you are taking a risk. You're taking a risk pretty much every time you leave your home at this point.
Right.
And so I think that we've all been talking about how it's probably necessary travel that's going to come up first. Probably very essential travel, people trying to get home, trying to get back to their loved ones, very urgent work, for instance. Leisure might take a slightly longer time to come back. But the truth is, before air travel comes back, we will see people taking driving holidays. We will see people doing whatever they can just to get out to places that are very close by. And I think that, people are, if I think we're all probably indicative of this, I can't wait to get out of the house and go somewhere really beautiful. So I think that, while obviously from an industry perspective, there's a lot of doom and gloom, I really do feel that from a consumer perspective, people are aching to travel. So the more that the industry sort of really tries to communicate to them, to reassure them, I think that people will start traveling sooner, I would imagine sooner than most of us are expecting.
That's true. But these words like sanitization is the new security, responsible tourism. How easy is it going to be to implement on a large scale right now? Because this has to be an industry-wide standard that everyone's going to have to adopt. So if Emirates is doing rapid blood tests before you get on board, Narita Airport is making you stay overnight till your results come in, how are we going to implement this across the board on every sector as well?
Is this for me?
Yes.
Well, I think, we've all been talking about there being a sort of global approach, a more sort of universal approach to travel. And it would be fantastic if all of the nations of the world could collaborate with, the UN, WTO or WTC or whoever it is. It's never happened before historically. So I'm not entirely confident that it will. However, if we could all agree on a global sort of agreement for travel, where every country is making sure that they test people before they actually let them on the plane, that will make a huge difference, I think, to people's confidence in traveling. Because you want to know that, as Riaan mentioned earlier as well, I think you want to know that everyone you're coming in contact with along the way has been tested and is completely safe. So I think if there were a global agreement, that would be fantastic. But to be honest, I'm not super confident about it happening. I think it will happen. It'll be up to each group and each brand to do everything that they can, and therefore they will have to, this is what they will now compete on. It won't be just the thread count of your sheets. It's going to be how often are you actually washing them.
Absolutely.
So you think this factors like air purification systems in planes, level of changing of bed sheets, mattresses is going to be as important as a ranking and a rating now as well?
I think so. I think in the short term, most certainly, I think it will be extremely important. 18 months from now, we all hope that there's a vaccine out there. We all hope that we will have developed an immunity to this awful thing. So hopefully all of that will, in a couple of years, hopefully we'll be done with it. But for the short term, I would say yes, absolutely.
Taruna, do you think that this global standard is possible?
I think we don't have a choice at this point. And just like post 9/11, all the security was ramped up everywhere. We weren't used to going to 5-star hotels and being frisked. And now the reality is today we don't even eyelid before doing that. It's become the normal over the years. I think when it comes to safety and hygiene, we have to kind of go on the same track. It is the new security, and we have to protect ourselves virus. So you will see that everywhere, from hotels to airplanes, and more as more and more travel service providers provide that information transparently to the customer base, the more confidence you get in traveling or visiting. So absolutely, I mean, it started the rapid blood tests before boarding, and so similar kind of novel ideas implemented across the board.
Okay, but there is a lot of travel anxiety, and that's not going to go in the short term, at least. So how is the definition of essential travel going to change? Because we found that most meetings can be via Zoom. Most classes, like Karan said, can be online. So what is essential travel now?
So this is the new normal, right? And I mean, we are kind of coming to terms with it. See, if you were talking about business travel, yes. I mean, will it be business as usual for a lot of businesses post-COVID? I don't think so, because all these cash-strapped businesses have finally kind of realized that, a lot of stuff can happen over Zoom, and you don't really need to be traveling to another city for a meeting, and so on and so forth. People have, I mean, it was always available. These tool calls were always there, but now we're forced to kind of use them daily for our meetings and engagements. So yes, so we will see cutbacks in business travel budgets. That's definitely coming in terms of corporate travel. We see that happening already. Now, as far as leisure travel is concerned, now that's considered more of a kind of two schools of thought. So one say it's absolutely optional, and this is something, it's not an essential thing. You better not go on a holiday. You're crazy if you're stepping out during this time, which I agree with, given the current situation. But having said that, we all are itching to get out at some point, because I mean, let's face it, travel just makes you dream. It makes you who you are. It gives you joy. It's something to look forward to. That's like the kind of psychological boost. We're all kind of trapped in our homes, and the kind of psychological boost that planning a travel, like an epic journey, will give you at this point will be amazing, right? So I mean, we need to be mindful that people are actually going through like depression. There are a lot of other mental, ailments that are coming across during this very difficult time. So, so travel gives us hope. So leisure travel is not going anywhere. And so one school of thought says no leisure travel, but yet there are surveys being done. I was reading a survey online, and it's by this luxury travel consortium in the US, and they asked 200 American enthusiasts whether about traveling in the future in months, and a lot of them, out of 2,000, about 70% said they're looking at future travel plans maybe as soon as September. So it may sound a bit optimistic at this point, but people are dreaming to get out there. So it's just a matter of time, and if the communication is clear from service providers, from hotels, from airlines, I think that's the way to go, and that's what gives confidence, and people will gain confidence in travel once things normalize.
Right. Riaan, do you have something to add? I could hear you.
I completely agree with what Taruna is saying, but I also have to say that, I'm not one of those optimists who think that, just because hotels and airlines are suggesting hygiene methods and everything, that I'm going to jump on a plane or check into a hotel, because at the end of the day, no matter how hygienic your hotel is, or how many times your hotel has been washed, or how many times your plane has been sanitized, if there's even one employee that is affected and walks into the hotel or walks onto the plane, all of us could be affected in spite of all these measures. So I'm still very, very kind of cynical about it over the next couple of months. But I think Divya said this, we are all going to be looking at, we're definitely going to be looking at holidays. I'm sure in spite of all of us complaining, I think 99% of us want to get out on that short break, and we will take that driving holiday, or maybe take that trip where we don't have to board a flight, or maybe don't have to go to a crowded hotel. Maybe just go, if you're in Bombay, maybe just go to Pune or Lonavala, or maybe even do a staycation within the city. That's definitely going to happen. And in my opinion, that's going to be a huge, there's going to be a huge trend over the next couple of months. Like, people are going to take their summer vacations in the city itself, or maybe just on the outskirts of the city.
But then how do you choose your hotels? Does that change now?
Oh, that's a tough one, actually. I mean, you can never be too sure, but now you're just going to take a chance and take a risk and go to the hotel that's closest to you, where you eliminate that kind of that travel and that contact with as many people as possible. You just get into your car and drive to a place. It's still eliminating the risk of you going to an airport and boarding a flight. And yeah, so I mean, I don't know if that answers the question, but
I would think, even Divya had said this in one of the articles you had done, that you would choose more remote locations because there are less people going there. Right, Divya?
So, yeah, so I would say that there's two things. One is, one is, as Riaan mentioned, we will likely go to places where we don't have to travel too far to get to. So I think location is going to be critical. If the hotel is in a secluded location, then that's amazing, because you're not surrounded by that many people. So that's also important. The other thing in regards to hotels, I think there's 2 points. One is that I feel like people will go back to brands that they trust. I think that that's going to become very crucial in people choosing a hotel from now on. I think that they're going to go with brands that they believe are going to actually have systems and processes very much in place, that they're going to adhere to those systems and processes, that they're being very strict about monitoring all of this. So I think that they will go back to brands that they trust, and brands who have communicated to them very clearly what it is that they're going to do. So in that sense, I think the bigger brands, your Oberoi, your Taj, your Marriott, all of those big brands have a great opportunity there. On the other side, I think you also have an opportunity for boutique properties, because they tend to be much smaller. So obviously by nature of that, you will encounter fewer people. So boutique hotels, smaller stays, even, for example, rental apartments, Airbnb, saffron stays, those kinds of things where you get to a particular villa, for instance, in a secluded location, and then you own it. You don't have to interact with dozens of staff members or lots of other visitors. You own it once you get there.
Right.
So I think, again, like there's, it could go in either direction, but I do think that for either of them, it's going to be so important to be able to communicate to people exactly what it is that you're doing. In my mind, I think, just given the way that I'm personally feeling, and I feel if I'm feeling this way, that a lot of other people will as well. I want to go, I'm not dreaming right now of going to places that I've never been. I'm no longer dreaming of going to Machu Picchu, for instance, at this point. I'd love to in the future, but not right now. Right now, where I want to go is places that I feel familiar with and that I feel safe. So I think that for me, I'm based in Bombay. So for me, it's more likely that my first trip will end up being Alibag or Pune or Goa, somewhere where I can get to, easily. So I think that these things are going to become more important. And I think also, I don't know how you feel about this, Karan or Aneesha yourselves. It's, is it something that I'd be interested to know as well. I mean, do you want to go back to places that you've already been right now? Are you aching to go back to your favorite places, or do you want to see something new?
No, I want to stay with the familiar. I want those places where I can come back before borders shut if they need to again.
Exactly. Absolutely. I feel the same way.
I think
that fear is going to take a while to leave us.
Right. I think it's also...
Sorry, go ahead, Taruna.
Sorry. I was just saying it's also a time to kind of rediscover India, like incredible Indian knowledge.
Absolutely, yeah.
We've been packing our bags and it's just kind of this bucket list and, how many countries and you're just ticking it off. So I think now's the time to really immerse in, we are living in this fabulous country. It's a gold mine and what we've discovered is really the tip of the iceberg. I think it really does give us an opportunity to share deep. And there's so many, like there's so many places which are driving distance away. So as Divya said, people are going to be looking at traveling to these destinations and starting with the familiar, yes. And once they get the taste of it, they will probably go a little beyond. And there's some fabulous boutique properties which are small, which are in these communities which are really secluded. With a very limited staff. I see more and more people traveling to those kind of properties going forward here because it just gives you that sense of safety that you are not interacting with a lot of people.
True. But going back to accommodation, Karan, for students, what are the options now? Dorms are pretty much going to be negative inflow right now, and Airbnbs, again, close to universities are not the best or not too many options. What do you suggest for accommodation for students going this year in August or in Jan when they can?
Right. So, when COVID first hit, the first thing universities abroad did was they asked students to leave their dorms. Right. So imagine international students overnight being asked to leave their dorms, lock, stock, and barrel. They immediately had to find options to stay off campus with friends or find A and B accommodation till they left the country and came back home. I've heard horror stories from some of my students who did not get access to quality accommodation after being asked to vacate their rooms. So going forward, social distancing is the new norm. And students who can afford it will prefer one-bedroom apartments very close to the university, somewhere where they won't have to take public transportation to the university. Other students would look to travel in pairs or groups so that they can share apartments with people they know and trust.
Yes.
This way, they would have some level of safety, as Divya was saying, as well as reduced costs due to shared accommodation. Now, we are seeing many student accommodation agencies already offering deep discounts to students who want to book accommodation between September and January. It would be interesting to see how these students balance social distancing and budget, because as you know, budget is a big constraint for most students.
It is interesting, but also the mindset that would you pay so much for an education that for one semester at least is going to be online now? How do you justify that?
That's again a very, very good question, because that's what students ask. They're like, well, I'm going abroad not just for the education, it's to meet new people, it's to grow as a person. Right. People study abroad. I mean, one of the things what a parent asked me recently is that, do you think this would impact the study abroad industry because of the same question, that are you going to just study online? In the end, people study abroad because of the flexibility to choose courses, the flexibility of doing engineering and business at the same time, for example. People do it because they want a better job abroad. They don't want to work in India. You know that if you're a salaried employee in India, there's a restriction to how much you can grow. You don't grow that quickly. And then, of course, people decide to go abroad because they're getting like a really great experience, meeting new people, new cultures. It's that whole experience. And finally, you may not get into one of the top schools in India. So you may be getting 99%. I have kids who get 99% and they're like, well, I didn't get into the IIT or the IIM or any top school of my choice. So what does this kid do? This kid wants to then go abroad. So at the end of the day, yes, the online education, the whole online education system can't replace the study abroad field, the reasons why people go abroad. It could temporarily for a short time, but it's not a permanent solution.
But there's also the parent fear, because tomorrow, like you said, borders shut overnight. Students had to get out and leave their dorms, find alternative accommodation. It's very stressful for a parent to know that they've willingly put their child in that situation. They've sent them abroad to study with all the best intentions. And then something like this happens. And there's no saying till a vaccine is found or a cure is found how often or how frequently this is going to happen. So how do you allay parents' fears? Because it's the same thing as a traveler's fear. Right. Parents obviously aren't there as well. So it's even harder.
Yeah, so just like again how Divya and Taruna and even Riaan, all three have touched upon this in some way or the other. It's about the changing customer, right? The changing consumer, is the changing student. What is the new mentality? What is it that they're thinking of? And for me, yes, of course. Now parents are going to tell students, look at universities closer to home. So let's not look at the US and Canada right now. Let's probably look at the UK, which is one flight away. I can bring you back home if something happens. That's going to set in. Anyway, earlier parents used to tell me that, no, I don't want my son going to the US. It's 2 flights away. I'm like, no, now there's a nonstop. They're like, no, it's just so far. It's the time difference. But now there'll be even more. They're going to be like, get me a university closer to home, which gives quality education. And at the same time, my kid gets the whole study abroad experience. We're going to probably see more demand for Singapore. People are trusting that Singapore, Korea, these countries somehow have a reputation of handling disasters well, handling pandemics well. That whole psychological feeling, Taruna, you were talking about the psychological feeling, right? It's a psychological feeling of safety. So students are going to look here. So I mean, there's really no way to allay fears of parents and tell them that, okay, it's absolutely safe to go till we don't have the vaccine. But it's not going to stop students because students are diehard. They're going to still go. We're just going to find destinations which are close by, which are relatively safer. And that's about it.
So which countries would you feel would fare better for studying abroad in a scenario like today?
I would say that, I mean, UK is very attractive because of the distance, because now they offer work permits to students.
Right.
I'm a fan of the US because the bulk of my students go to the US, they go to Canada, they stay back, they work there. We've got fantastic, high quality institutes there. But keeping into account the current situation, I think UK is going to be a big favorite. I think Singapore is going to come up in a big way. And other parts of Asia, like you're going to see more people looking at Hong Kong and possibly even Philippines. We've got institutes, just things which are closer and which are quality institutes.
Talking about closer, Riaan, you had mentioned that Colombo is a city that's going to benefit largely from when the curfew lifts.
Yeah.
Because of the proximity. Can we elaborate on that?
Yeah, so I think, so I'm based between Bombay and Colombo now, and Sri Lanka as such right now has not been as badly affected. They've been very strict about it. They're just at about 500 cases. So I see that once the flights resume between the two countries, I think that Sri Lanka as a destination is going to emerge because Indians will want to go there because it's just like 2 hours away from Bombay, maybe 1 hour away from Bangalore. And of course, it's relatively reasonable, it's clean, it's safe and everything. So along with domestic travel, I think markets like Sri Lanka and the other countries around India, which have not been so badly affected, will benefit from this whole situation, you know? So, but once again, that depends on when these two countries resume flights and tourism between the two, because for now, we can't even go to Sri Lanka. And I don't even know, even if the flights resume, if Sri Lanka will be able to accept Indian tourists.
That is the major one. So this is like the Australia scenario. They're thinking of opening borders with New Zealand first and allowing people to travel when things are a little better between the two countries. But of course, they are asking for mandatory quarantine on 14 days on both sides. Now, Divya, if you have only 14 days to travel, you're going to quarantine most of it, or at least 50% of it. So how does it impact everything?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I don't see anyone making a trip anywhere where there's a mandatory quarantine for 15 days. There's even some talk of quarantine being extended for 21 and 28 days. So I think unless you're going to that country to stay put for a while, maybe you're going there to be with family, I don't see anyone getting on a flight to go to any of these places. But I think definitely there are going to be, I think Sri Lanka will benefit. I think that Bhutan will benefit. You know, I do think that those places that have not had as many cases and that took control very quickly will absolutely see tourists coming back sooner. I think that we are going to have to be prepared for a lot more restrictions and a lot more new conditions. We may have to require a health certification, for instance, you know, something that guarantees that you're currently COVID-free. You know, once we start testing for antibodies, I think that even that will really help. So I think we're going to see, as they're saying, it's the new visa and the new passport is probably going to be a health certification. So I think that we do need to be prepared for a lot of these new restrictions, and it's going to come down to a country by country basis. So we're simply going to have to balance the need for, a lot of countries like Sri Lanka, Thailand, even Bhutan, they really rely on those tourism dollars. And those tourism dollars for them come from having a very large inbound market. Now, unfortunately or fortunately for India, we don't have a very large inbound number. We get only about 7 million international travelers coming to the country every year. But for us, domestic tourism is extremely important. So I think that we're going to see a lot more states, a lot more hotels, really all of the ones that even used to attract the international traveler. They're all going to start shifting focus and priority to now bringing domestic travelers into their spaces.
Yeah. But also this affects the duration of your holidays. Would you choose to be in one place for longer, or would you prefer shorter trip?
Absolutely. I think that, I think what will happen is that we won't see people hop as much. It used to be that if you went, if you were going to Europe, some people would spend a day in one country and move to a next country on the second day. That's out for sure. But even within the country, I think when people went to, let's say, Rajasthan, or you went to even a Kashmir, or you went to Kerala, you would go to 5, 6 places on that one particular trip. And I don't see that happening. I see people picking not just destinations, but I think that they will actually pick hotels. They will pick the destination and they will pick the hotel. They will spend a lot more time in the hotel. They will spend a lot more time. So again, for hotels, there's an opportunity there. The more experiences that they can provide for you within the actual environment of the hotel. And again, that's why the seclusion and space becomes so, so important. Because if you have beautiful outdoor space, if you have gardens, or you're out in the middle of the desert, people are going to start finding this very, very attractive. So I think at the moment, we'll see a lot of hotels. I hope that what they're focusing on is really building those experiences that will make people want to come in and want to stay.
That's very, but Taruna, a cruise offers you all of this. It has the space, it has destinations, but we're not going to see anybody getting on a cruise anytime soon, given all the stuff that's been going on.
Not at all. I think, yeah, unfortunately, cruises, I mean, people are going to give it a miss.
What is the absolute no-go list, according to you?
In terms of cruises?
In terms of destinations or the way we travel. Cruises being one.
Cruises being one. I guess we all have, I mean, as far as travelers are concerned, I mean, I think the owners can't just be on the hotels or the destinations, managing the situation on ground. I think as travelers, we need to be responsible ourselves. So, of course, if we are traveling somewhere, we need to know, I mean, either in conjunction with our travel advisor or, research, we need to know what the ground reality is wherever we go. And of course, there's enough information out there, and there will be a lot of hotels and destinations are putting together information and presentations as we speak, as of now, to kind of update their loyal customers so what they're doing in these times to counter. So these are the kind of newsletters that, I mean, we start receiving if you're subscribed to certain hotels and certain destinations of choice. They're going to update you on a weekly basis what the reality is. I think just keeping on top of what's happening where would be the number one kind of point. Be responsible. Coast cruises are a big no-no. Do not try and avoid cities. I mean, big cities which are crowded. Again, as we mentioned earlier, maybe going back to nature, look for secluded spots with fewer, people around. Also, how can we be more responsible? Remember, a lot of these secluded boutique hotels, for instance, are in these back and beyond, or in these communities, which we don't want to go there and text somebody. So be sure and also involve. I think the hotels on ground involve the local and be very transparent with them. Are they okay? I know they want tourism to flourish. I know they want to, but they need to be made part of the conversation. At the end of the day, you will be interacting with certain communities in really kind of fun places. So make them part of the conversation. And I would say, yes, absolutely. Cruises are a big no-no, and cities for now, city breaks, maybe we can avoid those too.
Okay.
You know, what's interesting here is that, so when I was talking to you about how students want to travel together, they want to live together because you want to be with trusted, safe people. The same thing while traveling, you take cruises with your friends and family as one group. You book apartments, you book these villas, you book it with the group of people that you trust. So the same thing what the students are doing, I think it might just transcend into what people are doing when they're traveling. Travel with a safe group of people and live with them. Interact with no others.
But is this easy to apply for students? Because you go to university to meet new people.
Yep.
You're going to be stuck with the same bunch that you left your country with.
It's the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? Safety first.
Safety first.
Then you're like, okay, you know what? At least I get to go to the university. I'll probably meet the people next semester. Right now, let me just be here with my people and at least attend class. So just in the hierarchy.
Shu, what do you think, Divya, about this? Would you travel with only the people that you know? You travel with everybody, right? You go.
Look, I think trust. I think I think that Karan and Taruna both have mentioned trust, and I think that that's going to be extremely important. I do think that there's actually a great opportunity for travel agencies like Taruna's to actually make a comeback at this point in time. We've talked for years about how travel agents and travel agencies are having a very hard time surviving in the industry because of OTAs coming up. And I think that this is going to shift things a little bit. Actually, it's going to shift things quite significantly, because if I were to make a trip today, I would very much be inclined to use a travel agency for the first time, because I want someone to have done all of the vetting that Taruna has mentioned. If I'm picking a boutique hotel in a secluded location, I want someone to tell me that it's actually really good. I want someone to tell me that they've thought about the local community, that this is a great hotel, they've taken care of their people during this particular time. They've done, they've made some efforts in terms of the relief that's going on right now in the industry, that, there's a trusted car rental agency that's, the car is going to be completely sanitized when it gets there, that the driver has been tested, that he gets me to the hotel, safely and securely. So I think that travel agents that can actually think about all of the different touch points along that process of traveling, if they're able to actually now really implement those kinds of things, I would be very inclined to use a travel agent. So I think that safety is going to be key. As far as Karan says, travel with the people that you know. It's obviously very different for students. And I was a student in America myself, and I was in a really small town in Pennsylvania. And I can't imagine if this happened to me today, I don't know how I would have managed to get back home. It's quite a scary thought. But the truth is that, at the moment when we think about traveling, when I'm thinking about it, I'm really thinking about how I really want to be in these beautiful places with the people that I really love and the people that I really want to spend time with, that I may not have a chance to be with during this time. I think that all of us have realized during this particular time, given how much time we're spending on Zoom, we really have a chance to realize who we're missing at this point in time. And, a big realization is that, our hearts are spread out all over the world. We have family and friends and colleagues all over the planet. So we are going to want to see these people soon. We are going to want to meet them somewhere. We are going to want to make a trip and spend that time with these people. So I think that in that sense, there's no way that travel is going away. Students are always going to want that study abroad experience. Zoom is great, but Zoom is great for people that I think you already know and that you already have an existing relationship with, and you can build on that and you can continue to get work done. But meeting someone for the first time and trying to make a sale, for example, on a Zoom call with someone that you've never met is much more challenging. So I think that, even for business travel, we will definitely see a dip, but you can't, everything cannot be replaced with a Zoom call.
That's true. But when you're talking about a pivot when it comes to travel agencies, Riaan, this is for you. There is also going to be a pivot of selling via travel influencers and luxury influencers right now, because posting pictures of throwback holidays right now could come down as a bit insensitive. So how do you see this strategy shifting for luxury bloggers and travel influencers?
Okay, so just to highlight what you just said, that a lot of people, a lot of travel influencers, luxury influencers, lifestyle influencers are doing a lot of throwbacks, which I personally don't perceive as insensitive if the messaging is not like, I mean, if it's not a very pluggy promotional kind of vibe, if you're just doing nice throwbacks of like fond memories gone by, nostalgia, beautiful places, just to populate your feed with good content, I think it works. I think what is insensitive is if bloggers or luxury travelers or luxury influencers, lifestyle influencers are capitalizing on this situation to make PR pitches and promotional plugs and, you know, kind of doing brand collaborations right now. That is insensitive. That being said, to answer your question, I think the future for any content creator, luxury lifestyle influencers is to obviously once the lockdown is lifted, people will have to start kind of generating content again, traveling again, because that's their job. And brands will have to kind of work with these influencers to create content, because once again, that's their job. However, the whole messaging is going to be shifted. As we started this discussion talking about safety measures, hygiene measures, that's the messaging that is going to go hand in hand along with the perks and the comfort and the amenities that the hotel or the brand offers. So I think the messaging is going to have to shift a lot. That's the future for sure. And influencers need to definitely take on a more sensitive tone, as you highlighted, and completely reinvent, reinterpret, and kind of repackage the content that they're pushing out there, especially right now. I mean, if you want to continue being credible.
But Riaan, like you said, it's part of your job to travel. How comfortable are you going to be getting on a plane, say in September or October?
Okay, so I wouldn't be able to tell you that right now, but however, I will take a call. I will take a call maybe later, and depends. I know that I'm not going to Europe for sure. You know, like even if someone offers me all the jewels in the crown, I'm not going to Europe for sure. But you know, like, I mean, if it's domestic destinations or destinations that I perceive might be safer, you know, and could add some value to my followers, saying that, you know, the followers could kind of take these recommendations from me and do, say, a driving trip or a day trip or a destination that's relatively safe, I would perhaps consider, if I am comfortable. For example, right now, there are a lot of restaurants that are kind of pitching to me saying that, you know, we've started delivery. Why don't you kind of let us send you some meals and everything? So, you know, you can talk about it to your followers, saying that, and these are the top restaurants. Right now, I'm not comfortable right now, I'm not comfortable yet ordering food from outside and getting food from outside. So I'm not doing it. Maybe 2 weeks down the line or 3 weeks down the line, I might. So the same thing is going to apply for travel as well. I know for sure this year, I don't want to be going to the really badly affected countries like Europe. However, maybe close by destinations, and of course, business travel is inevitable.
That's a dynamic situation. What about you, Divya? Are you going to be comfortable getting on a flight soon?
Yeah, look, I think that, you know, let's face it, 2 months ago when all of this started happening, we thought we were going to write off Hong Kong completely for the whole year, because with the protests and then with COVID, we thought, forget it, Hong Kong is out. They're just going to have the worst year of their lives. And the truth is, Hong Kong is now, you know, bounced back in this massive way. So I don't know, to be honest, unfortunately or fortunately with the virus, things are so volatile. You don't know from week to week where things are going to start looking better and where things are going to start, you know, really sort of unfortunately becoming much worse. So I don't think I could say right now where I would travel or where I wouldn't. To be honest, I wouldn't write anywhere off. I think that things really seem to be changing on a daily basis in different places.
True. I'm going to open this up to the questions that the audience has been sending in. There is, okay. Will road travel become bigger than it was before, especially the Indian travel industry? Taruna?
Yes, absolutely. So I think we're definitely going to be driving more. Like maybe an hour, maybe a couple of hours from home destination. I mean, when we were, it's actually kind of nostalgic. We all used to, you know, with children. And over the years, you know, with the advent of more and more airlines, the kind of like long road trips are not really happening on a very scale. So I think it's also kind of nostalgic to go back to, you know, your childhood memories, and you're driving to a or to a destination which is maybe in Rajasthan, for instance, or up in the hills. So it's going to come back in a very big way. You get in your car and go to your destination. So, you know, you're reducing the touch points.
Okay.
Yeah.
And someone asked, would you actually travel for leisure if you have to give a blood test every time before flying? It's a very valid question, because in the fun element of getting on the flight, the excitement, you do a blood test before you get on everything.
I think, I mean, if it's a quick and painless process, why not? I mean, it's a small price to pay. Many years ago, our parents said, oh my God, our security, our bags are being frisked and we are being frisked at airports. And now we've all gotten used to it,
Yes.
you know? So if it's a small price to pay, if airports and local authorities are able to do it in, like, streamline the process where we are giving a quick test, which is a painless one, which is a quick one, which isn't too inconvenient, I think all of us would be okay to do it.
I mean, I think I've stood in visa lines that were more painful than a blood test.
Absolutely. I mean, you go to America and you stand for 2 hours in the immigration line and no one whimpers.
But that immigration line is going to get longer now in every country, right?
But that's going to ensure safety, and as Divya said, if we can come to some sort of a international, you know, kind of understanding where each country is screening their citizens before they book, right? Nothing like it. I mean, I wouldn't mind a prick before, you know, if that just means safer travel. Absolutely.
True. The other question is, do you see a major change in the way hotels receive their guests? If not in the long term, at least in the short and medium term?
Definitely. I think there's going to be much less people attending to you, especially those of us who go to Indian hotels and we are so used to being waited on hand and foot, you know, by a dozen employees. I think that is going to see a huge shift. You know, we don't really know what hotels are going to do in terms of F&B over the next couple of months, but we might kind of see major changes there. I think also in terms of things like pool and gym and spa, all that is going to change. We're not going to have the same perks and kind of luxuries as we used to. End of the day, who wants to jump into a pool with 50 other guests, you know?
Right, but that eliminates your Thailand, Phuket, where the whole draw is having a brilliant pool, the beach. Even how safe a beach is going to be. You're sharing?
Well, you know, I mean, I think that what's going to happen is we're going to see a lot of hotels move, obviously, to a more contactless sort of interaction. So you can check in online. You know, the keys are going to change to your room. You know, all of those various touch points. There's probably not going to be someone doing an arti of you when you enter and sort of throwing rose petals on your head. I mean, that I think for the short term is not going to happen. But we are going to see, you know, villas come up. We are going to see hotels that have private pools. Those are going to see a lot of traffic. So I think that what we're going to be looking for is most certainly going to change slightly. We're just going to look for places that offer, all this time we've been saying, you know, these hotels offer you a lot of privacy. They're giving you your own villa, they're giving you your own private pool, you have your own butler, you don't have to come in contact with a whole bunch of staff. So I think, you know, the high-end travel space in that sense will have a bit of an edge because they are already primed to do this. They are already sort of designed for this kind of privacy. So I think that that's just going to now be elevated slightly. As far as, you know, Riaan mentioned, we're also going to have you know, we're also going to have a lot of people wonder what F&B is going to look like. And, you know, we're already seeing it. People are preparing to, you know, if a restaurant normally served 100 people, you're probably going to only be serving 40 to 50 at any given point. You're not
and no crowded buffet breakfast.
No buffet breakfast. I know Bhavna mentioned that as well. No buffet breakfast for sure. I think everything's going to be a la carte. So, so in a certain sense, you know, I think all travel might sort of shift towards that, you know, what the luxury hotels have been doing all this time. But, you know, hopefully we're going to get it at a much more affordable price. So that's not, you know, that part's not a bad thing, but let's see how it goes.
I think, Divya, I think the key is going to be on having, getting options that are self-contained, you know, like, you know, even if it's not in the high-end space, even if it's like beautiful Airbnb villas where you're self-contained, where you're cut off from the rest of the world at whatever budget you can afford, I think that's going to be the key, you know, rather than being in a big resort or a big building. You'd rather go to like an isolated place or a villa, you know, An Airbnb where you are
Absolutely.
not in contact with people.
Yeah, and I think Airbnb has also come out with, sort of revised norms for what they're going to do. And they're now going to allow for 72 hours between guest check-ins. So from the time that someone has left and the time that you actually enter that property, there will be cleaning, but also there will be 72 hours that have lapsed. So I think that we're going to see a lot of these different kinds of shifts. So I think that, like I said, there's a lot of pessimism at this point in terms of the travel industry, but there's a lot that the travel industry is working on at this moment to make sure that that they are sort of prepared for when things open up. And I think that, personally, I feel that we are going to see people taking that, because the second also, I think there's also certain comfort. The minute you have a first group of people doing it, and we see that they did it and they're fine, we have that sort of mentality where we're going to say, well, they did it, we're fine to do it as well. So I think that we're going to see that kind of traction develop.
I think some of us will just have to do it first, right, Divya? Some of us will. Yeah.
Absolutely. I think in this whole group today, I think we're all going to get a lot of phone calls very quickly when people start to open up. I'm already fielding these kinds of requests, and I think, but like Riaan mentioned earlier, this boils down to every single person doing what feels right to them at the point that they feel it's okay. If you are not comfortable ordering food into your house today, don't do it. If you're not comfortable getting on a flight a month from now or 6 months from now, or getting in your car to go to an office, don't do it. So I think that we're going to see people having, some people are more risk averse and some people are less. And that's always been the case, right? You have certain people who jump off of cliffs and off of airplanes for fun because they think that's how it is. And we're going to see that sort of risk aversion, and people who are risk takers, they're going to say, actually, this is fine. So I think that we're going to see varying levels. Everyone's not going to rush to do it as soon as things open up, but it will happen gradually.
The same thing about risk. That's what I talked to the parents about, because one, we were talking about safety, which is the biggest risk right now. But the second is the cost, because again, with the dollar going up, the euro going up, studies abroad have become more expensive. Traveling has become more expensive in that sense. You've got your investments in the stock markets hit. You've got no income because of the lockdown, and projected income is low. So you're hit on three sides. You're hit with the currency fluctuation, you're hit with no income, and you're hit with less savings. So It's a risk if you're going to study abroad at this time, if you're going to travel at this time. So that's what I tell them, that if you can't afford it right now, hang on, don't take a loan against your house, don't go crazy. There will be a next time. You could possibly look at studying abroad a year later, traveling a year later. If you don't take that risk, or wait and see if the risk is worth it for you or not.
Talking about risk, somebody spoke about insurance. How would that be a major factor now? Would insurance work differently when you travel?
Absolutely. Yes.
Sorry, Taruna, go ahead.
I think insurance will definitely be required as far as COVID is concerned. I think a lot of insurance companies are revamping their offerings as we speak, especially for high-end luxury travelers as well. A lot of their bookings, it's across the board, but this is happening, and we are in talks with some as well to implement this in the future.
Talking about insurance, somebody's also spoken about what about visa extension on an Indian passport holder if you get trapped in a country where there is a shutdown? I guess a lot of people are scared about this happening again.
I'm sure that's not going to be an issue, because the relevant government authorities and the embassies will take that into account. No one's going to be...
Well, absolutely. What even happened with the students who were stuck in the countries and the visas were expiring, they got automatic extension. So Riaan, what you're saying is right. The government will work. When things are not in your control, things around your people, authorities around you, in my experience, come to help you. So I don't really think that's an issue.
Karan, we have a couple of very concerned parents asking questions. One of them is, although regions like UK and Singapore are attractive to students, but would they be possibly the last ones to open borders? What happens in that scenario?
You said that they would, could you repeat the last part? They would be?
If the UK and Singapore are the last to open their borders, how does that affect students again?
So again, if let's say now, for example, the National University of Singapore decides to accept students right by July or late August, they say, you know what, next month we're starting. They have a system where you can get a visa in like 3 days and you can fly. So as long as you have scheduled flights between here and the destination that you're going to, the visas are something that the consulates are working quick on. Some countries, I don't know how Canada and Australia would work. I don't know if US would have enough appointments available, but I do know that places like Singapore, which have e-visas for students as well, they can process visas in like 48 hours. So they would. UK, again, has a expedited visa process for students where they tell you that if you want to get a visa in like 2 days, we'll charge you like an insane amount, but we'll give it to you in 1 or 2 days.
Right.
So I don't think travel to these destinations would be a problem, even if they open up late.
And would admissions be harder for 2021?
Yes.
Now,
that's the most expected trend that we are seeing, because think of it logically, so many people are deferring admissions to 2021, right? And if those people are deferring admissions, those seats are already gone. And because those seats are gone and we have limited seats, kids are not going to get admissions then for 21 very easily. 2020 has been a great year. We've helped students with Harvard, Stanford, Cornell, Columbia. You've got like all the schools coming in. But 2021, it's going to be a nightmare. So even when the funding is concerned, we help the students get funding. We help them with scholarships. We talk to the schools, like schools make exceptions for kids. But the bottom line is 2021 is not going to be easy for admissions.
Is it going to be easy for visas?
For student visas, I don't think it would be that hard, because I think somebody was talking about this earlier, that at the end of the day, the universities want students, countries want travelers, they want that income, they want that money. It's a huge source of revenue for many, many countries. And therefore, they're going to tell the embassies and consulates here that don't you dare deny a student visa, because anyway, we didn't get them in 2020. In 21, let's make up for the ones we didn't get. So I don't think visas are going to be hard.
I think it's in everyone's interest to make visas easier to get. And I think that's one thing, good thing that's going to come out of it, is that all the countries are really going to vie for the Indian traveler and student. So, you know, whether it's a US, UK, Schengen, you know, they are no longer going to have that high-handed attitude about dishing out visas, and it's going to be much easier, perhaps even cheaper for us.
Do you think it's going to be cheaper to travel or to get the visa?
To get the visa. Because I think all these countries, especially the European ones where they've got their tourist economies completely collapsed, it's in their interest to make it more attractive to us, you know?
Yeah. Taruna, one last question about the visas. Would the Schengen visa work in the same way now? Or would we see changes coming about in that?
I think as of now, there haven't been any official announcements regarding Schengen. So as of now, I don't think there are any changes that they have announced. Going forward, I think it may get relatively easier to apply for long-haul visas and actually receiving them in the near future.
Okay, I think we've covered all the questions that have been asked. One last question. Where is the next destination that you guys are going on once this opens up?
To the salon.
So I think I would probably be going somewhere to the hills, maybe in the Himalayas, a kind of driving distance away from Delhi. There's this beautiful cottage in Nainital that I went many years ago. Solitude in the Himalayas, I think it's called. I think I would go and revisit that. I've started some yoga and meditation, so I think I want to revamp, maybe go and stay there for a couple of weeks and remote office and just kind of work from there.
Nice. Divya, do you have any preferences?
You know, like I said, I think the first place we're going to go is probably whatever's closest to us. Taruna's in Delhi, so she's very lucky. She has the mountains so close by. But I need a beach. I really need the ocean and the sea, and I need blue and an open sky. So I'll take what I can get. If I get Alibag, I'll take it. But I hope we get Goa soon. And the second flights to the Seychelles are opening up, I'm going to be on that one. So I have a lot of plans.
That's a lot to look forward to.
Yeah.
I think Divya has sold me on Goa, so I'm going to say Goa as well.
Superb. Yes, wishing all of us get to do that soon. Thank you so much for the discussion. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Aneesha.
Thank you, Aneesha, for having us.
Taruna, Riaan.
Thank you, Karan, Taruna, Divya, and thank you, Aneesha, for having